What's goody in the hoodie, my babies? Welcome to episode 1 of Dinner with My Inner, where my inner child pulls up to the table, where my adult self pulls up to the table, and where we sup and commune in hopes of finding resolutions to some of the issues that we've had. In this space, I get to come to you in a very transparent, candid way, and I'm very excited about that. This model was actually inspired by a conversation I was having recently with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about some of the shadow work that we've been doing respectively. And a common thread was tending to our inner child. And one of the most beautiful revelations that I kind of had within our conversation is that when our inner child is triggered, we expect that by default, just because we're older, just because we are guided by logic and reason, that the default response will be carried out by our adult self. But realistically, when your inner child is triggered, the inner child that does not have the tools, the skills, the capacities to meet the need that it is crying out for, your response will be childlike. Yeah, you're gonna have those tantrums. Yeah, you might shut down, right? So a lot of those behaviors really do stem from the fact that your inner child does not have the tools, does not have the skill set to kind of act in the adult way that you think you should be so evolved and so able to do. So I'm very excited to share this space with you all. And for today's episode, what does my inner child bring to the table and what do I bring to the table? So for today's episode, my inner child is bringing jealousy. And my adult self brings the belief that I am divinely accounted for. Whenever I think about the concept of jealousy, I immediately think of lack. I think of scarcity. And over the past years, one thing that I've really tried to be intentional about is to stop operating from a spirit of scarcity and of lack, but to start operating in a spirit of abundance, right? And of universal provision, and knowing that what is for me is for me. My name is on it, and nothing you do can take my name off of it. So I'm very excited about the journey that has been embracing that spirit of abundance. But at the same time, I am aware enough to know that my inner child doesn't necessarily get the memo as soon as my adult self sends it out. One thing that I've been reconciling lately, especially about my inner child, because it doesn't die, it's with you, even if you try to mute it, even if you try to suppress it. I've been able to reconcile lately that growing up, I was very performative. I am extremely grateful for every opportunity that has ever been given to me. I would be remiss to not address that aspect of my life with gratitude. But I am also able to balance gratitude with criticism, healthy criticism. I'm able to balance gratitude with accountability. And I'm able to say, as amazing as it is to be put on pedestals, there's a responsibility that comes with that, and that responsibility can be heavy. Because when you're on a pedestal, you become a symbol, you become a representative. And it's not that flaws don't exist when you're on this pedestal, but the space for acceptance of those flaws does not exist. When you have to get the best grades, when you have to be that good citizen, there is an air that is attached to that. There is an expectation that is attached to that. And when you are constantly performative, how do you find yourself? How do you find your voice? How do you find your way back to your voice? And that's the even more critical question, right? Because we all have that voice that's within us that develops, but when you have to perform so vigorously, how do you get back to the you within everything that is going on? So for many years, I feel as though, because I was performative, I got to receive this message that I could perform my way into anything that I wanted, right? All I had to do was be good enough, right? But as you grow and you get to adult status, you realize that it is not that simple. You realize that you can be impressive, that you can be beautiful, that you can be smart, that you can be humorous, that you can be all of these amazing resume building tips. However, that is not always enough to get the things that you want. And when you first find that out, that can be very disrupting to your spirit, especially if you've only ever known that if I work hard enough that I can get this thing. And I remember I feel as though romance was the first area in my life where I ever had someone that I felt was treating me like I was regular. And I don't say that in a very cocky way as if I think I'm all this or all that. But for the first time, after having years and years of peers and adults and professionals just hype who you are, you get to this area of life that you've never had to delve into. And homie is treating you like you are the most regular thing in this world. And it's a very humbling experience. It's a very enlightening experience. But for the first time in ever, I realized that I could not just impress my way into the space that I wanted to be in. Which is the flip side of what we understand about this universal idea of provision, right? Is that if something has your name on it, it has your name on it. And if something doesn't have your name on it, it doesn't have your name on it. So I understand that in reconciling some of my jealous ways and reconciling why I can't have some of these things that I want my name on, right? Reconciling that is understanding what that inner child believes about how hard he can work his way into anything that he wants. And that inner child being able to retire that idea and being able to maybe embrace the idea that if something is not for him, it is not for him. Everything that's for him is for him. So that's a beautiful realization to come to. That's a beautiful offering from the universe to be able to accept, is that what is yours is absolutely, unequivocally yours. And the jealousy that we have that is attached to that fear of scarcity, that is attached to that fear of lack, it is for naught. Because we are tapped into a source that is overflowing. There is no running out. What is for you is for you. So that's where we are on episode 1 of Dinner with My Inner. That is something we're reconciling today. And something I want to offer up to you as just something to kind of remember as hopefully you are doing this journey of dinner with your inner, is that your inner child has a limited capacity. Your inner child has a limited understanding. And that's why both of you have to co-facilitate this dinner. Both of you have to co-facilitate this conversation. One experience that changed my life forever, I'll never forget it. During undergrad, I was completing an internship, and one day I was helping a student with her math assignment. Couldn't have been anything more complicated than multiplication tables, right? And I remember how frustrated she was. And I'm thinking to myself, at this point, I've done stats, I've done calculus, I've done trig, right? I've done all of these things. I'm like, this is just multiplication. But I had to remind myself that for her, this is the hardest thing she's ever done, right? This is the biggest thing standing in between her and the playground. To her and her limited understanding, this is the most impossible thing in the world right now. Sure, she'll go to calculus and all the higher level maths one day, but right now, this is the hardest thing to her. And as you are doing this shadow work journey of sitting down and communing with your inner child, understand your inner child might have that exact same struggle. Being able to be accountable, being honest, these are some of the hardest things your inner child is really having to face right now, regardless of if your adult self understands the necessity for it. So be patient. Allow your inner child grace. It's not to say that dinner with your inner is going to result in every time your inner child is triggered, now you're just so next level aware. We're not doing no tantrums, you know what I'm saying? We're not shutting down. We're not reverting to any of those childlike ways because we've evolved. It's not always gonna look like that. Sometimes it's gonna look like I still had the tantrum. I still shut down. I still resorted to destructive behavior. But now you're also being accountable. It's not just the way that you are. It is something I'm working on. And as we close out, because I like to tie everything back to a theoretical framework, when I think about this model, I'm also inspired by social exchange theory. which essentially says that when we enter into any type of relationship, we're constantly doing this weighing of cost and reward. And before we delve into any relationship, we generally seek for the reward to outweigh the cost. And I think that's a beautiful theory, and that it has beautiful implication for the work that we are doing here with Dinner with Your Inner. Because what you realize is that you are in a co-facilitative relationship right now with your adult self and with your inner child. And as y'all pull up to the table, both of y'all are weighing the reward and the cost. Because yes, it's easy to kind of chill out in ignorance. Yes, it's easy to say, I have my inner child trauma and I'm just gonna leave it there. It hurt, and yeah, it's influencing some destructive things that I do, but I'm just gonna let it chill out, right? It's easier to do that. But what happens in this exchange, this dynamic exchange, when you say, I want more, I don't want my inner child wounds to keep me bleeding on everything around me, bleeding on myself, bleeding on those I love, self-sabotage, external sabotage. Because one thing that's so interesting to me when I think about scarcity and when I think about lack, I think about desperation. And I always metaphorize it as I see myself like falling from the sky. And as I'm falling, I'm grabbing anything that I can hold on to. And it's a twofold purpose. One, I'm attempting to stop myself from falling. And two, I gotta pull something down with me. Did y'all catch that? I gotta pull something down with me because I don't want to be alone in my jealousy. I don't want to be alone in my misery. I don't want to be alone in my pain and my hurt. So yes, a part of that desperation and some of those things I do in that moment are protection. But then it's also misery loves company. It's also, what can I take down with me, because I don't want to have to be the only thing that's hurting in this situation. I don't want to be the only thing that's bled on in this situation. So I am excited for this opportunity. I am excited for the dynamic exchange that occurs between us and our inner child as we embark upon this journey together. So I challenge you, get you some good food together. Go ahead, set up the table real nice, like you have the best company coming that you had in a very long time. I want you to get that table real nice. And I want you to prepare to sup, to commune with your inner child, and to dig deep, to develop this great level of intimacy between you and your inner child, and to be honest, and to be candid, and to above all be willing to embark upon what will, even if it's hairy on the front, even if it's challenging on the front, what will be a rewarding journey. So I thank you for joining me, and I thank you for your possible willingness to continue as we have dinner with our inners. Until next time, I love y'all. Be safe, be blessed, be loved.